Good morning. It's June 2nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. Let's begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with a joint South Korea-U.S. security advisory on the North Korean hacking group, Kim Soo-ki. Coming in response to the regime's recent space satellite launch, the advisory targets the group and its engagement in information and technology theft. Seoul also imposes unilateral sanctions on Kim Soo-ki, the first ever sanctions on that group. Staying with Pyongyang, a UN Security Council meeting has been requested by member states to discuss the North's latest attempt to launch a spy satellite. Asia's largest annual defense dialogue opens in Singapore from Friday. The three-day event will involve security talks for the Asia-Pacific region as well as North Korea issues. 2 days after North Korea's failed attempt to launch a spy satellite, a joint security advisory has been issued by South Korea and the U.S. on a North Korean hacking group. Now, Kim Soo-ki has been stealing information and technology needed for space technology and satellites. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
In response to the North's failed space rocket launch to put its military reconnaissance satellite into space, South Korea on Friday imposed unilateral sanctions on a North Korean hacking group. The fresh sanctions have been imposed against a group known as Kim Soo-ki, which Seoul's foreign ministry says is a unit within the Reconnaissance General Bureau, the North's military intelligence agency. The hacking group is accused of extracting intelligence from individuals and institutions in the fields of diplomacy, security, and national defense, and handing it to the North Korean government. Kim Soo-ki is also known to engage in acquiring cutting-edge technologies related to weapons development, satellites, and space technology globally, while also directly or indirectly contributing to Pyongyang's satellite development project. Authorities say the group steals information using spear phishing, which mainly uses emails and websites. Seoul also issued a joint security advisory with Washington to warn the international community of the hacking group. It provided detailed information about the hacking techniques used by the group, while recommending that precautions are taken against suspicious activities to prevent potential damage. The joint advisory was released together with South Korea's National Intelligence Service, the Korean National Police Agency, and South Korea's Foreign Ministry, along with the U.S. FBI, the U.S. State Department, and the NSA. The latest sanctions mark the world's first unilateral sanctions against Kim Soo-ki and is the 8th unilateral sanction against the North since the start of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration in May 2022. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Also, following the North spy satellite launch was a request by member states for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Now, while details of such a meeting are yet to be decided, security cooperation is set to be tighter between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. Our Shin Se-byuk has more.
The UN Security Council has received calls to convene an emergency meeting in light of North Korea's latest satellite launch attempt. This is according to President of the Security Council, Lana Nuseva, on Thursday, following Pyongyang's attempt on Wednesday to fire a reconnaissance satellite into orbit. The attempt failed but has prompted widespread security concerns among the international community. According to Nate Evans, the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the United Nations, the request was made jointly by the United States, France, Japan, and others. Whether or not a meeting will take place will be decided after consultation with UN member states. Meanwhile, the U.S., South Korea, and Japan are further bolstering their trilateral cooperation after Pyongyang's botched spy satellite launch attempt. During a commencement address at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado on Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden said the allies are cooperating to strengthen deterrence against threats in the Indo-Pacific region, including North Korea. When it comes to China, Biden said Washington does not seek conflict or confrontation with Beijing. While saying the two sides should work together to solve some global challenges, Biden said the U.S. is prepared for competition and will stand up for its interests and values. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called North Korea dangerous and destabilizing and said the U.S. is with its two Asian allies to safeguard peace in the region against North Korean threats. This came during a joint press conference after meeting with his Japanese counterpart, Yasukazu Hamada, in Tokyo on Thursday.
We stand with our Japanese and ROK allies in the face of North Korea's continued provocations, and the United States will take all necessary measures to ensure the security of our homeland and the defense of our allies.
The Japanese defense chief also emphasized the importance of trilateral relations to better respond to North Korean threats, including any other attempt by Pyongyang to launch a satellite. 신세벽, Arirang News.
This weekend marks a significant event in the world of defense, as Asia's largest annual defense dialogue takes center stage in Singapore. Here's our Kim Hyun-sing for what to look out for.
This year, defense ministers from roughly 40 countries will gather at Singapore's Shangri-La hotel to hold major defense talks. Here are some of the most anticipated discussions. With Seoul and Tokyo patching up relations lately, so are the defense lines. South Korea's defense minister and his Japanese counterpart are poised to hold talks for the first time in 4 years, marking a potential thaw in frosty diplomatic relations. The two have been held in an icy deadlock since the 2018 Japanese patrol plane incident. Tokyo accused the South Korean Navy of violating naval code by allegedly locking its radar onto the plane flying at a low altitude. South Korea denied these claims and instead condemned the Japanese patrol plane for its provocative 8-shaped flight pattern at the time. After failing to find common ground about this issue for years, the upcoming face-to-face between the Seoul-Tokyo ministers hold the potential to finally bring about a settlement on this diplomatic dispute. Another key point is dialogue on North Korea. With Pyongyang's provocations growing increasingly bolder, the regime is expected to be the ongoing talking point. In three-way talks between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, these countries may discuss ways to bolster their defenses against any potential attacks. A collaborative real-time missile alert system may likely top the agenda. As for the wider region, China will most likely be grabbing the headlines. In a rare occurrence, China's defense minister Li Shangfu turned down his American counterpart Lloyd Austin's calls for a one-on-one meeting. Tensions have escalated, especially with the two countries in gridlock over the issue of Taiwan. It remains to be seen what China's stance will be and whether it will propose a new defense strategy. Kim Hyun-sing, Arirang News.
And more talks on security, peace, and prosperity took place on Jeju Island this week during the annual Jeju Forum. Now, highlighted there was the need to beef up international cooperation amid North Korea's evolving threats. Our Choi Min-jung was at the forum.
The Indo-Pacific has become a new center of global cooperation in addressing multiple security threats, especially with continued nuclear threats from North Korea. Speaking at the opening ceremony of Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity 2023 on Thursday, South Korean Prime Minister Han Dok-soo stressed the importance of the three-way alliance between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo for the peace and prosperity of the region.
The biggest threats to the Indo-Pacific region today are North Korea's nuclear threats and missile provocations. Through trilateral cooperation and international solidarity, we intend to strongly block North Korea's provocation and pursue the denuclearization of North Korea.
Former Secretary General of the UN Ban Ki-moon urged the international community to work together given the challenging global situation.
The global challenges before us now are unprecedented. Any individual or country, however strong or resourceful one may be, cannot solve such problems alone.
Speaking at a session on expanding global cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, South Korea's second Vice Foreign Affairs Minister Lee Do-hoon shared how South Korea plans to contribute to the Indo-Pacific. The official said one way is to strengthen non-proliferation and counter-terrorism efforts across the region, as North Korea continues to pose serious security threats.
In this regard, we condemn North Korea's so-called military reconnaissance satellite yesterday and clearly reaffirm international community's determination to denuclearize the North outweigh North Korea's nuclear ambitions.
This year's Jeju Forum was held under the theme of working together for sustainable peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, with the strategic importance of the region rapidly increasing with regard to global security and prosperity. On top of security issues, leaders and experts also called on the need to tackle common challenges like climate change, supply chain issues, and widening digital gap. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News, Jeju.
Disney's much beloved The Little Mermaid is back in a remake, but this time with Ariel depicted by a black actress. After receiving mixed reactions and comments around the world, the movie is now available here in South Korea. For more, we're joined by Mr. Pierce Conran. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
Good morning. Based on online movie ratings, The Little Mermaid doesn't seem to be doing well, particularly in the US and the UK. Now, do poor ratings have to do with the fact that we're seeing a different version of Ariel? I mean, if yes, why are people so bothered in the first place? And why is it so controversial? I mean, is it because it's Disney? What do you think?
Well, certainly when you have Disney's name on anything, it is subject to quite a bit more scrutiny than other properties might be. The reaction to Little Mermaid has been obviously kind of quite interesting to follow. It's one of those films where even before it was released, it was already receiving quite a lot of scrutiny. When Hailey Bailey was announced years ago as the new Ariel, that sparked up a massive discussion. Some people were upset about that. People kind of rewriting, changing IP, dealing with their childhood memories and all that. Even though, of course, this is the story of a mermaid, why should race matter at all? So it was certainly an issue to begin with. Once the film was released, the reactions were not so bad, I think, at least in the West. The critical reaction was somewhat muted. The audience reaction was a bit more positive, not extremely positive, but not bad. And the film has kind of been doing well at the box office there. It's often an issue, changing the race is kind of issue of gender representation. And you look at a film like Black Panther didn't really have a problem. Of course, that's not changing the race of a character. It's kind of a new character dealing with Black identity. But what about a previous Disney update like Aladdin? That was a massive hit around the world, and its main character, Aladdin, was changed to being a black actor, Will Smith. Of course, there's some asterisks there. Will Smith is a beloved global star, plus Aladdin is, a blue-skinned character.
Right.
But it is interesting seeing how it's, especially how it's broken down between the West and how overseas, around here in Asia, it's kind of a different issue.
Definitely mixed reviews globally, but the movie is surely on a roll. It's made a splash at the box office. It's taking over $163 million and worldwide in the first weekend of its release. I mean, are we going to continue to see this upward trend?
Well, it's kind of it's a tale of two different movies almost, because you have in the US, you had a really great opening over, I think it was a Memorial Day weekend there, a similar opening to what Aladdin did a few years ago, which of course went on to be a big hit. So in America, we're looking at about maybe over $300 million there, which is a lot. Maybe even 350, about the same as Aladdin again. However, Aladdin did really, really well overseas. As I'm sure you remember, it was a particularly large hit in Korea. That is certainly not the case for The Little Mermaid here. Overseas, it is being, in some places it's being ignored, and in other places it's being outright rejected. In China, particularly, it's doing very, very badly there. So looking at some reports, I've seen that the break-even point is apparently about $560 million. The budget is about 250, and print and marketing, it's about 140. And when you kind of add in the money it might make outside of cinemas, apparently 560 is the number it needs to hit. Will it do that? It should, based on $300 million in America, but it's doing so badly overseas that it's kind of a question mark. It might kind of struggle to get there. I don't think it's going to lose a lot of money, but it might, if it makes money, it won't make a lot.
Right. It's been over a week since The Little Mermaid has been released here in South Korea. Let's talk about how people here in the country are reacting to the new version. I mean, how have audience figures been so far? I mean, do we have better ratings than the ones in the US and UK?
Korea and China seem to have a kind of a similar reaction, where prior to the film being released, the reaction was very, very negative. People having not seen the film clearly kind of reacting to a few things, possibly the casting, and then there's also just, I think, a huge amount of just disinterest. And the movie is a failure here. There's no question. It's going to make it's not going to come close to hitting 1 million viewers, which is a terrible score for a big Disney film, especially in Korea, a market that really loves Disney products. So what's going on? Why isn't it working? The casting, it's hard to overlook that. Is there a tendency to racism? Possibly. I don't want to talk step way too much into that discussion. I do think that there is an issue with the IP not being as important to Korea as it is to the UK and the US. It's kind of similar to how films like Star Wars doesn't do well here at all. That's a beloved property that's really, really important in the US and the UK, but there isn't the same historical attachment with local viewers here, so people don't really care, maybe. And I think also coming on the back of so soon after Avatar, another kind of a film with in the sea with big visual effects, and Avatar is obviously the superior technical movie. I think maybe people kind of are looking at Little Mermaid a little bit like a poor man's Avatar. So you're looking at China and Korea, again, markets where Avatar did particularly well. People don't seem to care so much. But again, to make one more point about the potential racism, I think it's true that stories of black characters typically don't do all that well here. Obviously, Black Panther is an exception. Get Out was also an exception. But other things, don't do so well. Creed 3 is an example, a big hit in America, $150 million there, 6,000 viewers in here. I was one of them. So it is kind of interesting to see how some of these films really don't connect in Korea.
Right. Mixed views and comments on The Little Mermaid, maybe because it's Disney, because there's so much love and hate in between, right?
Absolutely. It's Disney does kind of get added scrutiny, and in this kind of day and age of this need to have increased representation on screen, it's very important. For some people, it's a very happy change. For some people, it's a more difficult one, and it always sparks off a lot of discussions. And we'll keep seeing that. It's not going to change. And this is the new norm, as it were. And and people will still be upset. And sometimes it won't really ultimately affect a film's success, and sometimes it will. Little Mermaid seems to be one. I think it's hard to ignore. It's a black character, but it's also a black woman, and I think that makes it especially hard. Will Smith doesn't get subjected to this kind of scrutiny. Neither did Chadwick Boseman. Neither does Michael B. Jordan, really. But poor Hailey Bailey has been caught in this controversy, and it hardly seems fair to her because she's great in the film, and everyone has agreed to that.
Right. Let's see how it goes. All right. Thank you so much, Pierce, for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
South Korea has advanced to the quarterfinals of FIFA Under-20 World Cup. The nation's Under-20 men's team in the round of 16 on Friday defeated Ecuador by 3-2. South Korea got off to a good start, scoring twice in the first 20 minutes in Argentina, and held off some late pressure from Ecuador to win the match. Now Korea will play the quarterfinal on Monday against Nigeria. The two had previously faced each other twice in the U20 World Cup in 2005 when Korea won, and also in 2013 when Nigeria were the winners.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin with the United States and Taiwan signing a new trade deal. The agreement announced on Thursday is the first under a framework made last year called the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade. Now, this first deal is meant to streamline customs and border procedures and cover regulatory practices and small businesses. Later agreements may include agriculture and digital labor. The new deal comes against the backdrop of increasingly strained relations between Washington and Beijing. It's hoped the deal will make Taiwan more resistant to economic pressure from China and increase the island's U.S. imports. Now in Ukraine, at least 3 people, including an 11-year-old girl, were killed by an overnight missile attack on Thursday in the capital, Kyiv. They were reportedly killed by falling debris while struggling to enter a locked bomb shelter. Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko described the incident as a crime and said such shelters should be open at all times. An investigation has been launched. Now, the overnight missile attack also injured 14 others and is the 4th such attack this week. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia launched 10 missiles and all were intercepted, causing the deadly debris. There were also reports of fires and damage to buildings. Now turning over to Jordan, which is celebrating the marriage of its crown prince. In a royal ceremony at Zahran Palace in Amman on Thursday, Crown Prince Hussein bin Abdullah married Rajwa Al Saif. Al Saif is an architect from a prominent Saudi Arabian family. Guests to the wedding included Britain's Prince and Princess of Wales and US First Lady Jill Biden. The day was declared a national holiday and even saw a free concert being held at Amman's International Stadium. The marriage is widely seen as a way to boost ties between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. And finally, in sports, Sevilla FC have won the Europa League for a record-extending 7th time. The Spanish football club beat Italian side Roma 4-1 on penalties after a 1-1 draw on Wednesday at Puskás Arena Stadium in Hungary. Roma's Paula Dybala drew first blood in the 35th minute, but Sevilla equalized in the second half with an own goal of Roma defender Gianluca Mancini. Sevilla have now won the UEFA Europa League, or its predecessor at the UEFA Cup, 7 times, which is 4 more times than any other club. Now, after the match, Roma manager Jose Mourinho leveled verbal attacks at match referee Anthony Taylor in a car park while leaving the stadium. Taylor was also confronted by Roma fans at Budapest airport.
Good morning. The first day of June offered summer weather in central regions, but much breezier conditions in the south. But summer heat is expected nationwide today, so some southern provinces will notice afternoon highs jumping 8 to 10 degrees higher than yesterday. But it's a cloudy start, and the south coast and Jeju are seeing lingering rain from yesterday, which should let up as the morning goes on. Then some of the inland areas will be seeing passing rain during the day today. Now, southern parts of the country will see sunnier skies today after days of rain and murky skies, with highs nearing 30 degrees Celsius and breathable air quality expected nationwide today. And finally, some sunny weekend is here with tons of summer warmth, and you might want to take out all your summer clothes this weekend to get ready for the hotter season. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.